Thank you for the wonderful and lovely introduction. Somebody asked me if I was nervous, and I said no, and then suddenly I am. But I think it's only because when somebody reads off your resume, you feel like I might have been that person. But I am the sum of other people's work in my lives, and I am proud to call Kitsap County my home. I remember when I came in here the first year, I was saying, okay, God, I've left pretty much everything that I know to marry this white guy. And give me roots here, because many immigrants have both feet, but neither, not committed much to one. And I don't want to be that. I want to be fully where I am. And I've had to say goodbye to many groups that I was active in, like a lot of Facebook groups from my master's degree, from my community members. And I said, I can't live the evening and the morning night of life. I have to be here in this time zone. And so I think year 7 is the culmination of that. So thank you for inviting me. Normally, this is the task of our community development team, but because I've been involved in Evergreen Bright Start, which kind of sounds like a Montessori kindergarten school, we call it Evergreen, or EVS for short, because I've been involved in the picking and selection. I was, I guess, just kind of voluntold. No, I do love being here. Thank you. So I am using right now a presentation that looks very formal. It's made by KMHS, Kitsap Mental Health Services. We call them KMH, and by the Bremerton Housing Authority. There's about 12 slides, and it may look a bit formal, but I'm doing my best to make it story-led because it really started with stories. And thank you for involving me in your advocacy, because a lot of you have been here way longer than I can imagine, and you have been so active, and I appreciate you being here and for all the work you've done for your community, which is also now my community. So I'm reaping the benefits of what y'all have done. And look at me using y'all. Now, when I just moved here 7 years ago. So I guess the first question I'd like to ask, and you don't have to answer this out loud, just kind of answer it in your minds. Are you right now currently homeless or at risk of homelessness? Or is there anybody that you know close to you, can be a family member, a friend from church or work, that has been talking about losing their home? Another question is, does this person have anyone they can stay with? Is this person's emotional needs being met currently or in the last 2 weeks? Has their housing at any point been disrupted due to race, gender identity, sexuality, or religion? Have they ever received care from the foster care system? Have they been adopted? Have they been put in legal guardianship? Is this person taking care of another minor, whether they're a family member or given to them by the state? Does this person currently receive any education support because they have special learning needs? And maybe how about the question of, is this person prepared to live independently, given the chance, given the money, given the opportunity? Could they take care of their apartment? Do they know how to sort laundry? Can they turn on a gas stove? Can they save money? Do they know how to budget? What would it take for a youth or a kid to feel safe in their apartment? So these are just a few of the questions that we ask the youth when they're applying for the Evergreen Bright Start program. Because a lot of them have never had a home, and even when presented with an apartment that's totally theirs, they may not know how to live in one, because maybe all they've known is a car, living on the street in tents, or maybe couch surfing every 3 months with different classmates and friends and family. Now, what I'm saying is probably not foreign to everybody. We know homelessness in Washington State. We have pictures, we have videos, we have news, it's all around us. But I'd like to kind of bring it home into Kitsap County, and so that we're all encouraged to see what is being done and the good stuff that's being, people coming together and organizations coming to do something that may have never been done before in Washington State, specifically Kitsap County. All right. So Evergreen Bright Start, again, it sounds like a Montessori school, right? It's like a kindergarten school. Evergreen stands for Washington. It's all about evergreens. It's all about putting down roots and how throughout the seasons you remain lush and alive and fruitful. I love Washington State. I fell in love with this state when I came here. It's just green all the time. But Bright Start, because we want to give these youth who are 18 to 24 housing and services in one building. It's like a one-stop shop. Have you ever been to a one-stop shop where you go and everything you need is there? I think maybe we can call it the mall, but in the Philippines, we have this very unique thing where our malls, you can have everything from the DMV to church services. You can have clinics there. You can have physical therapy, doctor's appointments, because Filipinos love the mall. And so the malls have catered by adjusting it to make it a one-stop shop. So a Filipino family can spend literally 9 a.m. until 9 p.m. in the mall because everything is there. So what Evergreen Bright Start is a new place. It's an 811 Avenue. And if you're at the intersection with a Starbucks and Teriyaki Joy and Burger King, it's that white building to the right. And it was born out of the passion of a few people about 4 years ago who said, we want to buy a building and we want to make it for youth and we want to put all the services in that building. Why? So they don't have to drive. They don't have to take the bus. They don't have to go to the next county or the next city or go to Port Orchard. Then they miss the bus, they miss the ferry, and then they miss their appointment. And then it's weeks before they can get that. And if we can imagine one missed appointment, we know how that affects your life. I have a car as a backup. I have a cell phone as a backup. I can ask my husband to pick me up if something happens. They have zero. And so sometimes they depend on organizations like Coffee Oasis for bus tokens or Orca cards because they have, again, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, but I love what I do. And so I wanted to convey how important this is to our community. So again, it's about 30 rooms. 6 of those are going to be for admin, but can you imagine a young person who's doing so hard to finish school, maybe have 2 jobs, is struggling mentally from all the trauma that he or she has experienced, and then to be told, hey, you got a shot to live in a place until you're 24, or even if you don't want to live in this place, here's your housing voucher, you can take it with you and bring it somewhere else. So that's a lot of freedom and that's a lot of sensitivity to what they've been through. I mean, just the fact that we've been asking these questions on them makes them feel heard, that what they've been through is legitimate, it's acknowledged. Here's another question that we ask them. How is this opportunity going to impact your life? Do you agree to follow the community rules agreement? It's a federal building, so there are federal rules that have to be followed with what's not allowed on property. And sometimes we'll have youth who go, I'm not ready for that. Thank you, but no thank you. And we respect that. We move on to the next youth who, maybe can live with a dog or a cat, but we'll say no to a Komodo dragon or something or a pet boa. So they have to agree that this place, fun as it is, maybe it feels like a college dorm room, it has limitations as well. And at the end of the day, it's still a lease they have to sign. And now we go, maybe I can ask this question of our lovely audience. Do you remember the first time you realized you were already an adult? Like you had this big moment. If I could have 1 or 2 hands, maybe from the audience. All right, so we have an answer from the audience. And what is your name? Suzanne said that living on her own with a roommate, budgeting meals, and probably scheduling cleaning times with your roommate. Okay, any other answers? Paying the rent, yes, thank you. We have one person from our panel, lovely lady from Bremerton Housing Authority. She said the first time she had this I am shocked moment was when she looked down and she was wearing pumps. And she goes, I'm a working girl now. I'm wearing pumps. I wore pumps in college, but not anymore because, they hurt my feet. So I wear sneakers to work. But these youth have probably never even been guided with what is adulthood. So when they move into this building,
part of them moving into the building is they're going to have an orientation. What is a lease? What does it take to have a lease? What are the responsibilities as a lease owner? And now, because it's low income housing, right now you're earning maybe 0 to low 60% income or 30, whatever it is. We will curve your rent according to how much you have. So the more you're earning money, the more we're going to ask of you, and that teaches responsibility. There's going to be a specialist on site who's going to teach them all about daily living, how to sort your laundry, how to turn on a gas stove, things like what cleaning products to use. These are actual questions coming from our youth. Will they allow me to live there? I have never touched a mop. What do I put in the bucket? What is a spin mop? And sometimes I take a step back and I go, how can you not? But then I have to remember, I had the privilege of having a normal upbringing where both parents were there to teach me how to become an adult. And I know that in Kitsap County, that is not the case. Many of our youth come from families that are fractured, and maybe they come from a generational cycle of poverty and not being able to make it. And so this building is going to host youth who we have seen want to break that cycle. They stand out when we do case management. They stand out like a ray of sunshine. They're just working their bums off, they are working so hard to make it happen for them so it doesn't get passed on to the second generation. And this is just kind of a snapshot of housing situation in our corner of the world. In Kitsap County alone, we need 24,000 units, housing units. That's our shortage. And I don't know if that number even strikes home, or does that number make, I'm not a math person, so sometimes numbers just go over my head, but I see stories and I see youth, and that's what makes sense for me. And if you were to rent or afford a 2-bedroom, you need to be making $36 an hour. I don't make that much. I am blessed that my husband, said, hey, if this relationship gets serious, are you willing to move to the United States? And I said, well, let me introduce you to my mom and dad, and they'll give you the interview. And they did. So, but not everyone has that fallback. Let me tell you a story about a girl who I worked with. She came into the shelter, a very small, tiny girl, even tinier than me, even, thinner. And she's an athlete, but her story was that her mom would be so much into her own head with her own depression and her own PTSD that she couldn't even drive her own kid to school, or at least make lunch for school. So this kid, starting 8th grade, memorized all the bus routes in Kitsap County so she wouldn't be late to school. And then she would get rides from other kids' parents so they could take her home after track or something like that. So this kid learned so hard to control her own circumstances that if you had met this young lady, it's almost like she was this vibrating little thing, because she held herself under control so much because she didn't want her whole life to fall apart because her parents were never there for her. So she came into my case management, and as I got to know her, our minimum is 30 days before we refer you to this program. I saw that she worked so hard as a lifeguard. And I go, how can you save people if they're twice your size? She worked with me. She was consistent with case management. She started to acknowledge the fact that having so much control is also not good. And I want her to she actually got endorsed for this program, by the way. And as we were walking through the building on November 1st, she started to cry. I said, why are you crying? And she goes, because I can now finally just enjoy life. And I'm sure a lot of you know how that feels, to just take a deep breath and not be scared for the next thing that's going to collapse on you. And a lot of the youth we work are like that. And I think organizations like Coffee Oasis, Scarlet Road, all these other nonprofits, Lutheran Community Services, Kitsap Mental Health, for the first time, these partners are talking to each other literally every Wednesday, all these wonderful directors, executive directors, these managers and staff come together on Zoom. I kid you not, every Wednesday. I started in June. They started in January. And then every Thursday, we talk about the next youth that we're going to move on to the next step. It can be really, you're tired, it's 4 o'clock. But day in and day in, these people come together to talk about, it feels like their life is in our hands because we can say yay or nay to the next step. But we also want to make sure that whoever we endorse or refer is also set up for success. If a kid or a youth is going through substance abuse, we don't want to put them in a place that's going to make them fail, right? We want them to be stable, get some mental health care. We want to get them into a place where they can actually focus on sorting their laundry and maybe cooking for themselves and knowing how to clean up, because if we set them up for failure, it's going to damage them even more. So sometimes I feel like I'm the angel or the devil on the shoulder. We have to advocate for both sides. And it's not fun being in a panel, let me tell you, because it feels like I have to say no. So this is just a strategy that the partners have for Evergreen Bright Start. And it sounds very technical, right? Because it's, that's just a graph, that's corporate speak. But I try to look at it from a community level. And when we say lead with equity, it really is opening opportunities for people who may single mothers, transgenders, people who maybe have a different religion than what we have, people who have special needs and maybe don't like big crowds, but flourish well with one-on-one. This building is going to get a mix of all those kids. And they're going to have, I think, a shock of their life when they realize that now I have to live with somebody I didn't like because I lived with him in the shelter. And so they're going to learn to be adults, both emotionally and everyday living. Data driven. This is more based on numbers, and I'm not going to go into that, but the approach to housing is we are seeing more and more that you cannot put a kid in a house and let them be. They're going to fail because they don't have the supports to keep that house going. And we want to make sure that we're doing this with compassion. For example, we're finding that this is a brand new program. We're finding that we need more legal forms and we need more release of information, ROI forms. But coming from a background of trauma-informed care, do we really want the youth to keep signing documents? They're going to start thinking, I'm going to get arrested if I sign the wrong document. So we're trying to keep even those signatures to a minimum. So it's really looking at what can we do, what can we bend, what can we make flow so that they're not too traumatized by the process. Collaboration at all levels. I am so humbled to be working with a group of people all the way from executive directors of Kitsap Community Resources, Kitsap Housing, Bremerton Housing, coming to the table and not being proud of the title, but serving day in and day out. These are the people who work for our communities. And I wanted to encourage everybody that that's what I see. And I'm new. I'm new to America. I feel like I've been here almost 8 years, but I feel like I'm still new. And I am shocked by how much I love the humility that people are bringing to the table for this. So it's got great, great foundation. These are just the partners that we have helping fund, helping work with, helping refer, helping endorse. Right now, it looks like who is standing out is Kitsap Mental Health, there's Scarlet Road, there's Olive Crest, there's Kitsap Community Resources, there's Olympic College. It's a mouthful. And a lot of our kids don't even see that. They just see the person in front of them who's helping them fill out paperwork to get into this housing. Unfortunately, we only have 24 slots, but it is a model program and it has never been done before, where somebody said, we want to buy the building. We need people to help buy the building. And then each room, each furniture is donated by the next good person. We need 5 more beds. Someone's going to give the money for 5 more beds. We need 5 more closets. Someone actually sends in a check for those closets. It's been like that since January. We have funding for 12 rooms. They're going to cover all the, I don't know, maybe the electric or something. But it truly has been a community effort. So we should be proud of this because the governor is looking at it. It's if this model takes off, we can replicate it and we can make youth, giving them not just housing, but helping them cope with what is a lease, what is a late lease, what is a fine, how can I navigate my neighbor who keeps playing the bongos, how can we teach the youth to not get angry, you know, when somebody stares at them in the hallway. It's almost like they're college kids in a dorm, except that they've never lived in a home. I have a funny story from Pendleton House. Are you familiar with Pendleton House? It's permanent supportive living for 0 to low income. Once you have a unit, it's yours until you don't want it. So we have sometimes, they've had people coming in for the first time from the streets, 70 plus years old, 65 plus years old, and they've never had to deal with a housemate or a dorm mate. And they'll go to the manager and they'll go, she looked at me funny, I want her kicked out. That's not how it works. We have to learn how to deal with relationships, right? And that's what these kids are going to do for the very first time. It's a bit scary, but it's also, we have fun. We're looking forward to it. Some of the questions that have come in is, can I bring my own furniture? Can I bring my piano? Can my mom live with me? And the answers are, no, mom can't live with you. You can have visitors for 12 days out of the year. If your piano is acoustic, can't bring it. Everyone will hate you. If it's electric, please plug in. No, you can't bring your couch because bed bugs. So it's a lot of these fun questions that they've never been able to ask. Can I go to Goodwill and get a nice blue couch? No, because bed bugs. So one of the hard things that we found out when we talked to them is this question. What barriers are you experiencing that could derail your housing stability? And people think it's money. Really, it's not just money, it's habits. Because when all you've done is failed, you're just going to want to fail because that's all you've done. But some of our youth self-sabotage after maybe a month or two because that's all they've done. And now they have actually somebody living in the building, resident managers during the night, and then staff during the day. So you kind of have this wonderful wraparound service to these youth where one of them could go, I'm really having a tough time. Can I talk to someone? They're on the first floor. All they have to do is go down the stairs. I don't think we have anything in Kitsap County that's close to this or similar. So it's going to be a first. So we're all crossing fingers. We're praying. We're hoping the certificate of occupancy is released so the first 5 can move in. What is my part? My part is just helping the kid fill out applications. My part is looking for that bright young star that's just wanting to shine even brighter in the universe. My part is sitting in those committees on Wednesdays and Thursdays, hoping that we can fill this 24 slots. I am but a small part of what's happening. I am proud to be a part of it. And that's me. It's not about me, it's about them. But if you want to be involved, ignore that. If you want to be involved, the best way is to go to one of the nonprofits that you're familiar with and ask how they can help. Why? Because that all gets funded to all the kids. Let me go back to this slide here. Can you see all of that? So Coffee Oasis, we all have programs that's all funded to youth. I heard some lovely participants here talking about going to the clothing closets or the secondhand clothing stores to buy stuff for the youth. I will let you know that a lot of these partners, they already have that kind of organized. All you have to do is ask them. And most likely they might let you know gift cards. Gift cards are one of the best things you can give because it's tied to motivation. And when caseworkers work with the youth, it's part of, hey, you've reached your goal. Here's a gift card. It's easier than giving them clothes because they already sometimes have clothes. However, for the winter, we will accept boots and jackets. We're always in need of that. Okay, so I'm almost done. I just want to double check to see if there's anything in the slide that I need to say. I just want to emphasize that Kitsap Mental Health and Bremerton Housing Authority have done so much. This is actually their baby. This is their baby program. This is their baby project. You wouldn't know because they don't talk about that it's their baby. They're not ever, they don't sell themselves. You just kind of find out in the background that this has been on their heart for so long. And I'm just reaping the benefits of the tail end of it. Yeah, it's a program that has had so much humility and hard work from these people. And I'm just proud that I'm able to share some of it. So that ends my presentation. Should I keep this Zoom on and take questions?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
There's one question there, that another thing that they need to do is they need to know how to make their own appointments.
Yes.
That was
Yes.
asked. I'm going to ask you, first of all, anybody here? Did you want to say? I've got one question, but yeah.
Very clearly in our handbook and very clearly on our walls, it says that the reason we want restoration for everybody is because we are first restored. Personally, I cannot give hope if I don't have that hope myself, and I cannot give peace if I don't have peace in myself. So my personal journey is one where I have been restored by God's work in my life and what I've been through in the past. But it's very clear in our policies that we cannot turn away anyone based on their gender, their sexuality, their race. Age is only 13 to 25 in our shelter. Because of our license with Department of Children, Youth, and Families, we can only take 16 to 21. But it is in our policy very clearly that we do not turn away anybody. Mm-hmm. So the question coming from our audience is, do we have a Hispanic speaking outreach staff? Correct. We have one outreach in Bremerton and she can speak Spanish. And we also just hired our Bremerton area manager who also runs our drop-in center. He can also speak Spanish, having lived in California for much of his life. I am bilingual. I can speak 3 major Filipino languages and English. So there's that. I believe that in our other locations, some of our staff can speak a second language, although I'm not sure who those are. As far as race, diverse, as far as language, I am not sure, but I can ask. That's a good question. When do we hope to have the Evergreen Bright Start filled? Right now, I believe we are at youth number 16. That's in the works. So it's all these levels of kind of, it's like a race, but everyone started at some point and they're all catching up. We start with selection. Number 2 is they get checked for their voucher program. It gets checked. Are you on a lease? Or do you owe somebody money? Are you running away from a renter? And then making sure they're income qualified, meaning they're not earning too much. And then the other thing is to get a full mental health assessment for free. And so with that assessment comes support. How can we support this diagnosis? How can we support that diagnosis? This is, we can offer you counseling or therapy if needed in the building. No, we don't, because we are waiting for the city to release. Sorry, the question was, do we have kids living in the building? We are hoping before the end of November, we'll have our first 5. Yes. The question is, if we had infinite resources, how could we stop kids or youth or young adults from being in this situation in the first place? My heart is the restoration of families, because research tells us over and over again that a youth is more successful in life if there is a family connection, whether it's a second or third cousin or somebody from the tribe that may not be closely related, but is part of the tribe. We are finding more research and our courts are supporting that. They're going to turn first to a family member before a stranger. So if I could help restore family, find a way to reconnect, finding a way to at least have commonality where I may not love you, I don't like you all the time, but we can sit in the same room and not kill each other. because part of the part of the big wounds that our youth have is not having any kind of family who wants to claim them, even if it's just an aunt or a great aunt, somebody from Nevada that I've never met but wants to claim me. The For me, I think the heart of restoration is just knowing that I am loved. And I think when youth come to Coffee Oasis and they come from all sorts of backgrounds, sometimes honestly smelling of weed, it's just a reality. We go, hey, right now you can't concentrate, and hey, maybe you're not acting appropriately. How about you go outside and maybe come back tomorrow, and let's all play again together. So it's really is learning to live and relate respectfully, relate without using mean words, without words that degrade. And we try to be really compassionate, because sometimes the youth will come in and honestly hasn't showered. How do you compassionately say, how can we work to make sure that you're being healthy? To look into why haven't they showered? Maybe because they don't have anywhere to shower. That's just a small example. If we have a question, if there's any restrictions for religious belief for the staff, are you asking for Coffee Oasis or for Evergreen Bright Start?
But maybe both, but
Maybe
Evergreen
both.
Bright
So
Start.
for Evergreen Bright Start, a lot of their staff are already hired by organizations like Olympic College. They're probably already therapists from Kitsap Mental Health. One of the resident managers is a graduate from Wazoo with a degree in agriculture, but had been an RA for 3 years. If you're qualified and in the interviews, we can see that you have a heart for youth and you have a heart for restoration and not being too judgy, and really seeing that I want to be part of your life, to lift you up and work with you. You can see that at interviews, so like job interviews, and that's one of the questions we ask is, this is your age demographic, these are the kids you work with, are you willing to work with them? Because if you're not, that's okay. But we would love somebody who has experience with an at-risk population, because it truly is a unique calling. Yeah.
So they don't have to have any religious ticket or
No. Yeah. 24,000 housing. Yeah. I think that's just, I can't speak for Bremerton housing, but I think it's the need versus what we have. Like there's so many probably living on the streets. It is unhoused. So when we say unhoused, unhoused can mean you're couch surfing. You're living with friends, you're living with relatives, you're living in a car, you're living temporarily with your aunt who said 3 months you're out. So you don't have a place to call your own, whether you are leasing with somebody or the lease is in your name. If you're 17 years old, you have to be 18 first, because the program is 18 to 24. And in our county, in our state, you cannot be in a lease until you're 18. You can't rent with somebody if you're not 18, because this is to protect abuse and trafficking. Now, if you wanted to room with somebody and you wanted to share the rent, you all have to be 18 and older. And there's restrictions like maybe only families together. If one is a minor, you have to show proof that you're related somehow. And I see it from the point of view of, that makes sense, because we want housing to keep going. We want rent to keep going. We want rent to be paid. And if we just allow minors to rent like that, then we also want the minors to be safe. However, if you're 18 or about to turn 18 and you want to get into Evergreen Bright Start, my suggestion is go to Coffee Oasis first, whether it's in Port Orchard, whether it's our location in Poulsbo or Bremerton, and then just say I'm interested, and then we'll start the process for you. We'll ask what you've been doing, what goals you would like to be in. Do you want other housing options besides Evergreen? Are you wanting this, or maybe you're looking for something else? Because Evergreen is not the solution. It's very limited and it's very attractive, but we have other housing solutions as well. Coffee Oasis, we start at 13. That is, we do ask for parents' consent or legal consent. However, they can just go to the drop-in center, Coffee Oasis drop-in center, and hang out. And we make sure that all the staff who are working there are cleared on the FBI level, and any adult who comes into this space has to be cleared as well. So we can't just have any adult coming in and hanging out. Yes, sir. I'll repeat the question for our Zoom. What's your name, sir? Tom is talking. Do you mind if I repeat that over Zoom? Tom is talking about a partner from Texas who, when he was 14, ran away from home. And because there wasn't anything at the time to absorb him running away from home because he was persecuted for being gay, joined other social groups that were similar or like him. Do we have something like that in Kitsap County? In Kitsap County, the Coffee Oasis Shelter is the only shelter that houses minors. For shelter, yes. Not permanent housing, but I guess short term to medium, because our shelter can house 16 to 21 when they age out. When they turn 21, they age out. 16, why 16? That's how far we can go with our license. If we went younger than 16, we would need more staffing. So right now it's really all about money. It's also about how much staff we can hire. And it's hard to keep overnight staff. It really is, because they get sick more. The stress is more because you're working night shifts. If you know nurses and doctors or people who work in trauma care, you know that it's hard to keep overnight staff. For Kitsap County, we are the only emergency shelter that can hold underage youth, meaning 18 and below, and very limited 16 to 18, and only 6 beds. However, they can stay up to 150 days as long as they're working with a case manager. So that's about 5 months that you can get your adrenaline. You can take a deep breath. You don't have to, where's my next bed tomorrow? You know that bed is yours for 150 days. It's your bed. No one's going to touch it. You don't have to line up like the Salvation Army. They line up every night to secure a bed. This bed is theirs. As long as they're working with the case manager, they're checking in 30, 60, 90 days. They're reaching their goals. They're working hard to, it's a privilege to have a bed for 150 days. So if you don't work for that privilege or you don't want to maintain it, but then you can get back to the bottom of the wait list and apply again. And that's the beauty, I think, of the youth work that we do is, hey, there's consequences, but you get a second chance. In fact, you get 3 chances to come back into shelter. And you can stay in shelter for 150 days per year from age 16 to 21, if you so desire. We have a question here. What about those who are age 12, 13, 14, 15? In our current legal system, if you're a mandated reporter, and anybody should be a mandated reporter, it is a call immediately to Child Protective Services. And it's either they go into foster care, or the system goes and finds legal guardianship somewhere, maybe a grandma in, I don't know, Alabama, just pulling cities from the air, legal guardianship or temporary guardianship or foster care. The question is, do I think the system is working? I think any system can be broken, but some systems really work well. I can't speak to that because I don't work for foster care systems, but there are people who are really trying hard to make it work. And I know there's some stories out there, but I've never worked with foster youth directly. So I know of a lot of success stories. I love that question. Our question from the audience is, when we have somebody in our shelter, I'm assuming it's about the shelter youth. In our shelter, for you to stay in shelter, you either have to be working, looking for a job, or staying in school. Otherwise, we're just free hotel. And so we check in with the school. Is this youth going to school? Are they playing hooky? Are you working towards your GED? Can we find alternatives to regular school curriculum? If you're working, let's look at your job applications. Do you have your resume ready? Can we help you write your resume? And the truth is, sometimes for 3 weeks, these youth cannot even get to that point because they're so tired. They're sleeping most of the time. They are so, it gets a while before your mind and your body go to a state of calm. And if you're running away from violence, you have to stop looking over your shoulder to even sit down long enough to make a resume. And so sometimes as a caseworker, the goals I set for them are very simple. What's our goal for next week? To meet next week? Cool. What's our goal for next week? To fill out a form? Great. You can only fill half the form. That's okay. We are moving. And the important thing is to let them know that they're moving forward. I had a youth who for 3 weeks couldn't concentrate long enough to sit down and talk with us because she was running away from, she was being sex trafficked. And when you're in that state of fight or flight, you can't sit down long enough to even remember what the rules are or what the shelter curfew is. It's just your mind is so wounded and so fractured and so traumatized, you can't concentrate on anything else. Yeah. But yes, we try as much as possible to have goals with them. But can you imagine living on the streets for 3 weeks and then suddenly you're meeting with a case manager 2 days later and she goes, what are your goals? I didn't even know what college I was going to be in until I was close to graduating from high school, or what program I wanted to major in. And then we have someone who's never maybe finished school and being asked that questions. Yeah. Yes, we have a question from the audience about a lot of our youth who have never been taught how to organize, maybe never lived in homes or settings where organizing was a thing because you're a nomad, you're moving from place to place. I feel and I believe that living in a shelter, we try to teach them these skills. One is limited space. So when you're in our shelter, you can only bring as much as a medium suitcase or a backpack. Number one rule, limit the limitation of space. And so we're constantly checking to make sure that they're not going over. Why? Because when they leave, if they hoard so much, they're going to have a hard time lugging all of that with them. And we see that over and over again. And so we say, this is not to harm you, this is to help you. Number two, part of what our staff in our shelter teaches is everyday organizing. That's why we always have a routine. When you're coming in, shower, dinner, homework, chit chat, maybe games, bedtime, lights out at midnight. We try to enforce a routine because they have never had a routine. Whether you love us or you hate us, you're getting up at 7 a.m. We hate your dumb rules. That's okay. Teenagers, right? That's okay. You don't have to live here. You can go somewhere else where there's no rules. But if you want to stay, that's the organization. Is you come in at 9, you have to leave at 8. Another one that we try to do for them is give them binders with clear sheets and tabs. Maybe they've never been given tabs. Binders with clear sheets, those 3-ring binders with a little clear envelopes. A lot of them have never had that. And so I'll see a youth struggling with all his folded paperwork folded into his backpack and getting damp and wet. And it's your birth certificate. And I go, can I buy you a binder with clear sheets and wonderful, lovely tabs? And let's write on those tabs. You thought I gave him heaven, the keys to heaven. And so he said, this is all my sketches from when I was a child before my mom kicked me out. Mm-hmm. A little gesture of a clear binder helps them organize their memories. Or maybe, and that's where sometimes the funding comes in, we can buy these things. Or I go, look at all your pictures. Let's make a scrapbook. Let's organize it. Do you want me to help you scan all your electronic documents? So even if you lose your originals, you have them saved in your email or your cloud, right? And it's giving them the ability to say, oh my gosh, I never knew that a 3-ring binder could be such a lovely thing. Or let's get you backpacks or little Tupperwares to sort your jewelry because you have too much, or your little makeups. Let's get you matching stackable clear things in your locker, or one of our youth loved tools so much and he kept dragging this big backpack that just clunked. And I said, let's get you an actual toolbox. Helps him organize and see that I don't have to give up my passion, just because I'm in a shelter.
We thank you very, very much. Of course, there's not too many questions more. I think it's amazing that we've gotten, that we have so much needs. And I wonder sometimes how we've gotten this way in our society so that we have so many poor children that need care. Thank you very, very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.